Charli XCX has had one of the best years an artist could ask for. Her album Brat has been a critical and commercial smash success. The first week sales for Brat came in at 77,000 units, which more than doubled what her previous album Crash did, and Crash was her biggest success at the time. In terms of reception, she got the coveted Best New Music sticker from Pitchfork with an 8.6 out of 10, and she got the maybe even more coveted 10 from Anthony Fantano. As if the album's first iteration of success wasn't enough, she dropped the deluxe and remixes with superstars like Lorde and Billie Eilish that pushed her further and further into the stratosphere. But listing off these traditional benchmarks for album success still undersells the cultural impact that Brat has had on the world. The lime green album cover with the stretched, low-resolution Arial font has taken over social media, showing up in people's profile pictures and single-handedly carrying that shade of green to the status of this summer's hottest color trend. Brat Summer became a rallying cry for people who were ready to live their best lives, whatever that looked like. But what began as this organic feeling movement, built around genuine excitement and celebration, soon became too big to contain the coolness. From the moment that Brat Summer was deemed to be alive, people were placing bets on when it would die. On July 25th, Ariel Gordon called the time of death for Pitchfork in the article "Brat Summer is dead, long live Brat Summer." If you accept that time of death, then the events after July 25th are a lot like this one oft-referenced Simpsons meme.
Stop! He's already dead!
Pitchfork had declared it dead after politicians started referencing Brat and Brat Summer in their campaigns, which is understandable, but it's only gotten way worse. From the DNC last week to even investment banks are using it now. The definition of Brat Summer is a bit open-ended, but I think we can all agree that Deutsche Bank is not having one. Look, Brat Summer by definition always had an expiration date. As we approach the end of August, summertime for those of us in the northern hemisphere is already on its last legs. Real fall cells like me have had their hoodies and flannels laid out on the bed already. I'm wearing a crew neck in my room. Ice cream trucks are coming around less and less. Football is about to come back. Kids are already going back to school in a lot of places. But the summer still isn't over, and yet, people on the cutting edge of cool have put Brat down like the Toy Story kid and picked up Demure. We'll see if that line even makes sense by the time this video comes out. The Brat phenomenon is a great case study from a few different angles. It can help us understand just how quickly an organic movement or trend can get squeezed and bled out until there's nothing left, and it means nothing anymore. It also shows us the power of an incredible rollout, and how even in a time of paid social media posts and half-hearted marketing campaigns, an artist can still really nail it and win the people over. So let's dive into all that. But first, if you like videos on music like this, I'd really appreciate a like and subscribe. I drop a video every week. If you want to see them early, go to my Instagram, HADJI, throw me a follow, and join my broadcast channel. I post the links to all my videos one day early in that broadcast channel. Also, I've got a song coming out called Showtime. If you're watching this video the day the video comes out, then the song is coming out at midnight. If you're watching this after the fact, it's already out. But as an appreciation to the people watching it on day one, the unlisted video link is in the description, so you can go check it out. Also, people in New York, I have a show at Snowdonia in Astoria on September 7th with 100% of the proceeds going to the PCRF. If you want to come support a good cause, I would love to see you guys there. Alright, back to the video. The seeds for Brat Summer were first planted in February, when Charli played a Boiler Room set in Brooklyn and the demand was through the roof. Over 25,000 people RSVP'd for the set when it was first announced. There are some tweets from back then that can help you get the vibe for how badly people really wanted to go. The hype for Charli was at an all-time high. And in case you're not too familiar with her career, this wasn't just some flash in the pan or some artist who went viral on TikTok a year ago, or some momentary other form of virality. This had been a long time coming for Charli. This is going to be a bit of an abridged history of Charli XCX, so for the superfans watching, I'm sorry in advance. It's not going to be as in-depth as it probably could be, but I hope you understand for the point of the video. The first time most people heard Charli was on somebody else's song. Whether it be Icona Pop's 2012 single I Love It, or the hook of Iggy Azalea's 2014 single Fancy. She also had her first Hot 100 entry as a solo artist in 2014 with her song Boom Clap. Following this early work, she started working with the left-of-center pop music collective PC Music, which really took her music in a more experimental direction. She spent the latter half of the 2010s pushing the boundaries of the pop genre and dropping fan-favorite projects like Vroom Vroom, Pop 2, and Charli. Her 2020 project, How I'm Feeling Now, further strengthened her relationship with her close-knit fanbase, as she involved them directly in the project. Due to the global pandemic, she pivoted to using live streams to create while her fans were in the room with her, kind of, and encouraged them to email her letters and beats. While most artists keep their fans at arm's length during the creation process, even those who are closer to fans than others, Charli decided to let them in under the hood and see what making a project is really like. She would ask fans on Twitter which songs she should include on the project, and use Zoom calls to show them artwork and upcoming plans. She turned a depressing and isolating pandemic situation into something that strengthened her relationship with her fanbase even further. She built on that momentum with her album Crash in 2022, which was the highest charting album of her career in the United States at number 7, before Brat set the bar even higher. Charli hit the scene with a couple of collabs and successful singles, and rather than flame out, she steadily built her fanbase and grew as an artist creatively, in front of everybody. She had the stage set for a huge breakout moment to establish her as a household name. The February Boiler Room set felt like the first inkling of that, but she popped out again to show us a couple months later, in May, and really confirmed it. She tweeted, "The Lot Radio, 7 p.m., 17 Nassau Ave, Brooklyn." The Lot Radio is a Brooklyn-based radio station that has, well, a big lot in front of it. And so she held a free concert in that lot that quickly got very packed. She performed in front of a green wall and wrote on TikTok, "Brat Wall Forever." It remained blank for a little while, but ahead of the album coming out, she updated it to say, "I'm your fave reference," which is a lyric from the intro to the album 360. She would keep updating the wall, including painting it white to announce the deluxe album, and writing Lord on it to tell everyone that the Girls So Confusing remix was going to feature Lord. The Brat Wall was an excellent marketing strategy with both IRL and URL components. It gave fans a place to go and take selfies and hang out and do whatever led to those brown stains on the wall. But live streaming it on the internet and posting about it also gave people who didn't live in New York a chance to feel like they're involved in something. The artist billboard is a pretty common thing at this point, whether they take one out themselves or another music brand puts them on theirs like Spotify does for a lot of artists. But Charli made it her own thing, and she made it interactive, which really contributed to the album's hype and aesthetic. So the album came out and the music was well received by pretty much everybody. The fans loved it, people who hadn't really listened to Charli before tuned in and became fans, and critics raved over it. Charli had been one of the best pop writers in music for a while now, but this felt like a true celebration and acceptance of her as an artist. Now, on top of being great at making the music, she was nailing the promotion of it, and aesthetically becoming someone that people were stealing ideas from. As she said, "I'm your favorite reference." And that line feels especially targeted at other pop girlies like Katy Perry and Camila Cabello, who have been accused of biting her swag to less success in recent months. So the stage was set, and at no point did it feel like Brat was something contrived or forced on people. Fans these days are definitely extra sensitive of feeling like they're being pushed something or sold something, like we saw with the autoplay video that I did. And Charli figured out how to avoid that pitfall with the Brat rollout, well, at least in the beginning. And that's because Brat wasn't just an album, it was a lifestyle. Charli told us what it means to be Brat in an interview with TikTok for their Off the Record series.
You're just like that girl who is a little messy and likes to party and like maybe says some like dumb things sometimes, who like feels herself but then also like maybe has a breakdown, but kind of like parties through it. It's very honest, it's very blunt, a little bit volatile. Yeah, like does like dumb things, but like it's Brat, you're Brat. That's Brat.
But if that wasn't enough, she got more specific and actually set the rules for Brat Summer in an interview with BBC Sounds that came out the same day as the album, on June 7th.
It can go that way, like kind of like quite like luxury, but It can also be like so like trashy. Just like a pack of cigs and like a Bic lighter.
Yes.
And like a strappy white top.
Yeah.
With no bra.
Yeah.
That's like kind of all you need.
She said it could be quite luxury, but also quite trashy. On a yacht in the Hamptons, Brat. Blacking out and eating dollar pizza in Brooklyn, Brat. With the rules so wide and accepting, everybody could have a Brat Summer. What could go wrong? Brat Summer is, of course, not the first meme title for a summer. There's Hot Girl Summer and White Boy Summer, if one of those aligns with your identity. There are nostalgic look-backs at specific summers, like take me back to summer 2016 when Blonde came out, and everything was just simpler. If I had to guess, the whole obsession with summer is probably born out of the school system, and the fact that kids daydream about what they're gonna do with all their free time once they finally get there. Those 2.5 months feel like forever when you're young. When they become adults, unless they're teachers, they're probably not beholden to such restrictive seasonal thinking. But maybe it's the weather, because the feeling of wanting to charge up and have the best summer ever seems to always persist. There's something about the season of summer that is so optimistic. yet also has expectations that tend to outsize the reality. It's only 3 short months after all. You may have daydreamed of going to the beach a ton, going on vacation, seeing your friends, having big, grandiose dinner parties, and eating lobster rolls. Maybe even something as simple as just getting some reading done. It feels so big and vast at first, so you set all these expectations for it. And when it ends, you inevitably feel a little bit disappointed that you didn't check every box off. The meme culture of Brat Summer reflects this and includes that in it. In June, it was all about the Brat Summer you were going to have. But by July, there was a shift in the tone of a lot of the memes to include the big gap between expectations and reality of Brat Summer. Google Trends showed us how the term slowly exploded into what it is now. And after the album released in June, we immediately saw memes on Twitter, mostly parodying the album cover. Here's Ritz crackers and Kerrygold Irish butter. The state of New Jersey used the Brat colorway and font to announce heatwave precaution tips. It still felt like something that was reserved for the savvier social media managers, and not something that was beaten to the ground just yet. The pure memeability of Brat was that things didn't have to specifically be made in the format of the album cover to be Brat to people on social media. Having a set color for the movement meant anything in that particular hue of green or just something close was Brat. It was hard to go on Twitter from mid-June through about mid-July without seeing something referencing Charli and Brat. It started to leave the hyper-online circles of music fans, as we saw the color itself become a meme that grew outside of the Charli XCX audience. There's a whole article on House and Home, dedicated specifically to the color. Harper's Bazaar similarly taught us how to dress Brat. But the true turning point came on July 21st, when Charli XCX tweeted out 3 words that changed the course of Brat Summer forever. So the United States is in an election year, and for the sake of my non-American voters, I'm gonna do a rather simplistic explanation of what's going on. I'll make it quick. This is not a politics channel, and I don't want it to become one, but let's give this a shot. Our current president, Joe Biden, is 81 years old. He was set to run against Donald Trump, the Republican candidate, who also happens to be our last president before Joe. They had a debate in late June, and Biden looked 81, put it that way. So there was a lot of pressure for him to step down. It was pretty unheard of for a one-term president to not run for the second term. So that was a really big deal. But eventually the pressure got to him, and on July 21st, he announced that he would not be seeking re-election and instead gave his endorsement to his vice president, Kamala Harris. This, of course, set the internet ablaze. This is not something that happens in America every 4 years, every 20 years even. This is pretty new territory. Charli XCX decided to chime in and tweet, "Kamala is Brat." The tweet currently has over 300,000 likes. Kamala's team embraced it, changing their background on Twitter to the Brat green color and font combo. Political pundits like CNN's Jake Tapper jumped in, declaring, "I will aspire to be Brat." Not long after that, we had people asking New York's Mayor Eric Adams about having a Brat summer. This is the 2024 version of Pokemon Go to the polls. What does it really mean to be Brat if the vice president of the United States is Brat? The movement started as something to celebrate, kind of a sort of underground party culture. And to some, it ran alongside a culture of recreational drug use. Is a presidential candidate who is infamous for a high rate of drug-related convictions as California's Attorney General really Brat? This isn't to say that Kamala Harris is a bad or a good political candidate. Again, this is not a video about politics. I'm not even sure that I would say that Charli necessarily made a mistake in tweeting that. At the end of the day, it's not that serious. She's not even American. And although I'd argue that no American president has ever really been Brat in the history of America, I would say that Kamala is probably a little bit closer to the Brat ideology than Trump is. And even if that one tweet did, according to Pitchfork, lead to the death of Brat Summer, it was always temporary given the seasonal restrictions of the concept. I just want to make the point that at a certain point, these words no longer mean anything anymore. When everybody becomes Brat, then nobody is really Brat. That became even more clear in the weeks following the Brat-colored foray into American politics. Forget about political candidates. We have every single social media intern at every company posting that chartreuse green Brat graphic. Deutsche Bank, a German bank with almost $29 billion of revenue in 2023, is decidedly not Brat. But looking at their Instagram, they are looking for a Brat in finance. What does that even mean? What is a Brat in finance? This has gone too far. And if you thought the first round of political stuff was bad, the Democratic National Convention was last week, where Gen Xers celebrity Mindy Kaling declared that U.S. State Representative Nancy Pelosi was doing Brat before Brat was Brat.
This woman was doing Brat before Brat was Brat. The mother of dragons. Please welcome Nancy Pelosi.
The Game of Thrones reference right after really sealed the deal there. It's over. It's Jover. Is there a more perfect example of how bastardized the phrase brat has become than that? The early stage social media manager posts about brat at least kind of made sense. When New York City's MTA posted about the G train having a brat summer, I'm sure some people groaned and rolled their eyes. But if we look a little further, I think it's actually kind of acceptable. First off, the G is the only subway line in New York with that kind of green, or at least something close to it. Also, the G serves the part of Brooklyn that might as well be considered the ground zero of the brat movement. If you wanted to take the subway to the Lot Radio where Charli had that show in May, the closest stop is the Nassau Ave G train. So okay, if the G train wants to have a brat summer, it kind of makes sense, go for it. But Nancy Pelosi and Deutsche Bank are not having brat summers. I'm not here to fault Charli XCX for tweeting something that she probably thought was harmless, and at the end of the day, it kind of is harmless. And I'm not even really blaming campaign managers or social media interns for doing what they're supposed to do. What I want to do here is look at what Brat Summer shows us about the cycle of an organic movement, and how it feels like anything with real grassroots, genuine roots will eventually get eaten up and become a parody of itself in due time. Perhaps Brat was always destined to be like Barbenheimer or Tiger King, a short-lived cultural phenomenon that becomes a signifier of time, a future remember when, or a bar trivia question. Maybe eventually it becomes a focus of a nostalgia-based trend in the future. I'll look back on 2024, the summer of Brat. Maybe I'll send my future kid to school on 2020's Decades Day and they'll come in something Brat green. Am I crazy or doing too much for feeling like this could have been something more than what it was? It was the perfect storm of a fan favorite artist making her best work and catching some of the biggest looks of her career. It arrived at a time when young people are desperately looking for something to attach themselves to, as they look for present distractions, to avoid thinking about a scary future with war, famine, natural disasters, and AI robots coming to take all of our jobs, including musicians' jobs if you've seen my video. It has a color, a theme, an aesthetic that is both immediately distinguishable and endlessly replicable. But instead, it's become a meaningless punchline for Mindy Kaling to introduce Nancy Pelosi with. As consumers in 2024, we might have to accept that anything we enjoy could become big enough to lose all meaning. At the end of the day, even though the hype and support for Brat was organic, this is still a release from Atlantic Records. It's not like this was some sort of precious, secret, underground thing. We root for our favorite artists to succeed, and if they do really hit that highest level of success, then we're likely to see that thing that we love, that thing that we feel like we understand more than anybody else, or that we feel like was for us, get used up for cheap promo by entities that don't necessarily stand for what we might stand for, or that the artist might stand for. At the end of the day, that's not really a new concept either. The hippie movement was once a political force, pushing against the Vietnam War and for environmental rights. And now it's a $40 kid's Halloween costume. But I do think this happens now a lot faster than it used to, thanks to the internet and the slow decline in the importance of subcultures in favor of a rapidly changing algorithm and quicker ability to imitate whatever it is that we see on our phones. From an artist perspective though, I gotta say that Charli gets a 10 on the rollout. Everything was done perfectly, from the aesthetic to the way that it was drip fed to us, to the big free show, to the internet coverage of everything to make sure that people who don't live in New York could feel like a part of it, to the Brat wall, to the deluxe version and the way that all the information was revealed. I'm sure the tour is gonna be amazing. I mean, I talked about how selling tickets is kind of a struggle for everybody, including for Charli in some markets, but I think they're going to be a success story on that tour at the end of the day. When Pope Francis decides to reference Brat at Mass next week, we can't take all of that away from Charli. And maybe I'm overthinking all of this. I just have been thinking a lot about the trend cycle in 2024, and it feels like there's no better example than Brat. What do y'all think? What should I cover next? Let me know. Peace.